Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Anne Rochelle Ine, and I'm the Executive Director for Government Affairs and Public Policy at ARIN. And some of you who were here yesterday when we were doing the newcomer session will have heard that I am somebody's clone here. My clone is at the back there. She's a little blonder. She's been around for about, 10 plus years. And I have big shoes to fill. I want to tell you a little bit about Kathy. She's part of the internet governance landscape and in what we do in general. Kathy is really one of the people who are, the most respected in this government affairs dealings that we do out there with the community. So help me in saying thank you, Kathy, because Kathy will be leaving us at the end of the year. And, thanks very much. So now she hates me. And we're going to have to work together through Plenipot. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of some of the things that the government affairs team does out there when we go. Why we here first? To improve, relationships with the world out there, and the world out there doesn't stop in, the community that is here. It is all of the regional folks that you see. You just heard Bevel talk about the Caribbean. We're also, apart from the Caribbean, when you talk about internet governance, we're part of what is called CTEL, the Americas region, because that's how policies around internet governance in general are done. And then we're also members of international organizations like the International Telecommunications Union, where we go often. So we participate, we monitor all of the global relevant meetings that are out there. Why? Because a lot of the policies that they put together in terms of the wording, somehow are inching towards looking into, what we call internet identifiers today. And, in doing that, we make sure that we keep the ARIN executives involved in terms of making sure that everybody understands what is going out there and what can come back to bite us. We do this why? Because there's a change in the world. I think everybody feels this. We have a world that is way more connected. Apparently, by next year, we will have 50% of the world connected. You've heard Bevel say some of the governments in his region are, some of the governments in his region are very much involved into, looking more into today, having their own networks. That comes, of course, with a lot of responsibilities that are, everybody now here is aware of what is happening in terms of, for example, data protection and so on and so much. We have issues with global political, commercial uncertainty. We deal with the networks here. What is above the networks today counts just as much. And that is what is making the governments look at us look into not only our processes, what is this multi-stakeholder thing? Who gave you the authority to do what you do? Why aren't you controlling, this V4 market? Why do you have legacy people who are not part of your processes, and so on and so forth. So these are, some of the questions that we get. And of course, we have an unraveling, geopolitical order where you have the ones who have been protecting and, talking about multi-stakeholder model, open internet and all of that are today looking at, well, let's stay home and do it. The concept of sovereignty is becoming a really huge thing out there. And of course, issues like, what everybody hear every day on, breaches on networks is not helping us. Oops. So some of the key issues that we basically have to deal with out there, when they say privacy data protection regulations, what does that mean for us? We manage a database that is called WHOIS, where we have people information. When one jurisdiction says you can't have people's data out there for everybody to see, and then, we are having databases that do exactly that, unless we can prove that there is real need to have people's information out there, we're going to have to explain. And basically, they're now looking into all of these processes where at any level we collect people's data. Again, because of, jurisdiction issues on data privacy, they want to keep data local. They want to make sure that people are not monetizing that data, and so on and so forth. Cyber conventions. Well, the insecurity on the networks has really gotten to the point where they're saying, they're looking at who's responsible, whose network has been breached, what has happened, why did that happen, who's responsible in the process, So data management, I talked about that. All of the issues of Internet of Things with devices that are hooked up on the internet globally where, that are not secured enough, that other people can hack into and then get to other networks, to the point where, this is bringing issues of what traditionally in the internet governance world, some of you may have heard, they talk, us talking about network, not only network security, but issues of, how do you deal with security breaches at all levels? Again, this is something that comes back for, them to say, who is responsible? When we give out only IP addresses, ISPs are in the middle, and people are doing bad things with addresses that have been allocated. One of our colleagues here, Leslie, works with law enforcement people who are always, looking at ways, simple ways to get to the people who do bad things on the internet. And then, of course, the adoption of IPv6, I think we all know, how slow that has been. The issue of, for, certain regions today who have come on the internet pretty late, who could have issues getting, V4 addresses, because for them, they say, the equation is very simple. Why do you want us to get IPv6 when, still about, 70% of the internet is V4, and why did you not keep enough for, the latecomers? So in working with governments and intergovernmental organizations in general, what we do is we go to several places. You know that ICANN has a governmental advisory committee. That committee has people that actually are also part of government, just like, as I told you, law enforcement. But often you get people who go to ICANN, who know all of the things that are happening here, who really have no idea, for example, what is happening at ITU. It's the same networks, it's the same country, but when it comes to policy issues, you have two people basically doing completely different things. So one of the reasons why we go to ICANN is also that, it helps us in terms of things that we have seen in one place. It could be OECD, it could be UNGA, which is the United Nations General Assembly, because countries are taking resolutions also there today that are related to internet and its governance, all the way from the technical aspects to the policy issues. We find that it is important that some of them are aware in their own countries that some things are happening and that these are things that we're seeing here and there. So it's a way of making sure that we talk to the people who know about the multi-stakeholder process that can help us also advance that by talking to their colleagues at home. Oftentimes, we point to them, the people at home who are dealing with ITU, for example. We're going to be next, at the end of this month, we're going to the ITU plenipotentiary meeting. The ITU plenipotentiary meeting is a 4-year, it happens every 4 years. It is the place where basically ITU reopens a bunch of resolutions. International Telecommunications Union has 3 sectors, one dealing with spectrum, so radio communications, one dealing with telecommunications standardization, and another one dealing with development and a lot of capacity building. Some of the RIRs actually have MOUs with that department in ITU to help do capacity building in IPv6, for example. I'll come back to that a little bit more later. We have the United Nations General Assembly, as I just said. The second committee in the United Nations General Assembly deals with ICTs for development and global partnerships. So it works on the committee works on ICTs and cybersecurity, and SIDS is small island development states. So it is just about everybody that is in Bevel's region, and they talk about anything from connectivity. Like, just this past week, there was a meeting at UNGA that just finished with the first part of it where, heads of states and everybody comes to speak, where they had countries and also, operators, the ITU, talking about how to get a resolution to the UNGA to have connectivity as a human right. So these are the things that, everybody is kind of working on policies, resolutions, and all of that we have to make sense of and look into how do we get to those people and let them know what it is we're doing and be part of the conversation so they can let us do some of the things or continue doing what we're doing at the moment. Inter-American Telecommunication Commission, so CTEL. CTEL is the body that deals with everything that is communication in the Americas. We participate to their meetings because most of what they do also feeds into ITU, in general. And of course, they take resolutions, from the ITU to implement, for example, everything on capacity building that comes out of ITU-D, or resolutions on SIDS that from the UN General Assembly that are sent to the ITU saying you have to do more capacity building on ICTs and telecommunication, then translate into the Caribbean region. So we also work with the Caribbean Telecommunications Union. You've heard Bevel talk about that. We look into, what is happening at the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Why? Because OECD has a full concept called Going Digital. And Going Digital looks into anything from the regular networks all the way to, say, taxation and what they call OTTs, over-the-top bodies that, are dealing with the content issues and all of that. So again, these are places where you feel like, oh, well, content is not something that really matters to us. But if you dig down when they say content and then come to how they're going to impose regulation on people, you backtrack in there and then you find that, oh, yeah, it's going to come to the ISPs, it's going to come to us eventually. World Summit on Information Society, related activities, also an Internet Governance Forum. With our other colleagues at the RIRs, we have booths, and we also participate as individuals on several panels talking about Internet and Internet governance in general. So I was telling you about the plenipotentiary meeting. These are some of the resolutions that, for example, touch us directly. These are only just, the ones that are core Internet. 101, Internet Protocol-based networks. These are actually old resolutions. Some of them, date back to 1998. And they are reopened every 4 years because for the longest time, the ITU and, dealing with telecommunications has tried and, to get Internet as its core activity. Telecommunications probably means that, for them. So Internet should be included. So these resolutions, all of them, are being reopened, at Plenipot. What happens is that member states are the ones who have the last say. The way we work is that, we work with them to make sure that they understand, some wording could be prejudicial to what has now somewhat been accepted as, okay, this really should be done multi-stakeholder, this really should be done, in region, the RIR model as you know it, we've explained several times, is working, you have agreed to it. So some are being reopened with language that could be innocuous until we get there and see who is saying what, because these are the resolutions that touch us directly, but there's a lot more where they basically have to barter. So it will be, I give you my vote on this one, and you accept my language in that one. That's how it works also. So we basically have to run around and make sure that everybody agrees with us that we're good guys, we do a good job, and it is important that so far, they kind of leave us alone. And keep things in your hands instead of just making sure that or having policies that would dictate that all of the stuff that we're doing go back into government hands. So in the ITU, we also participate to the development conference, the World Telecommunication Development Conference. This one we participated last October too, and it's really where all of the D sector do all of their regulation or resolutions on, what is happening in that sector. So a lot of them are on capacity building, but you have a lot that are on also security of networks and all of that. Standardization assembly is the one where they discuss a lot of the standards, and we do participate to that. And the last one is the World Conference on International Telecommunication Regulations, which is really the basic treaty in ITRs, for short, is the basic treaty for telecoms. Some of you may have heard that we had, there was a wicket in 2012 where we ended up having another set of ITRs. So we have 2 right now in the world, basically regulating telecommunications. And if you are signatory to one, and then I'm signatory to both, if we have any dealings in telecommunications, we fall back on, the one that we're both signatory of. That's how it works at the moment. Now, a lot of people are not happy about that. They would like to have one set still. So there's a lot of talk about, should we go for one set? If we go for that one set, what does it include? Just basic telecommunications as we knew them, or do we include internet stuff? So it's going to be discussed also at Plenipot, and we basically going to have to listen in and work the corridors to make sure that they don't do that. If they decide to have another wicket, there's not much we can do. It will depend on how many people will feel that it's a good thing to do. If not, we fall back on having again another study group, and we will have to participate to the study group to continue working with everybody on not having another wicket and not having another big conference where we could include internet in there. So in study groups, in between the 2 sectors, we're members of T and D sector. These are some of the study groups that we participate into, and as you can see, they really go into stuff that we do. Study group 2 goes into operational aspects of service provision, telecommunications, ENUM, INRs, NGN standards. Our colleague Einer has actually written, we've written quite a few, 2, I think, Einer, yes, 2 papers that are on the participate link on ARIN's website, if you feel like reading them on number of resources, and with also our colleagues from RIPE. We participate to study group 20 that talks about Internet of Things, smart cities, and communities. It involves everything. So study group 1 at ITU-D is enabling environment for the development of telecommunications. So when you say enabling environment, it goes from capacity building to, put in the networks, but mostly there, it's a lot of regulators also that we have to convince that, yeah, please at home, make sure you don't, nail down our ISPs, put them on in a box, allow IXPs, do this and do that. I mean, it's really getting them to understand the way it works and hopefully dealing with the community of our folks that are working with the networks. And we participate to TSAG, which is the coordination committee at the T sector with all of the study groups. There are a lot of study groups in ITU-T and in ITU-D, and we also participate in ITU-D to the coordination advisory group. And this is it. if you have questions.
Hi, Lee Howard from Ratevia. Thank you for all the work that you do. I was relieved to see, because I wasn't paying attention to what ARIN was doing at the time around the study group question or proposed numbering plan for IPv6 in IoT. And so I was relieved to see, as you said, ARIN had written a couple of papers, and I went to see what they were, and I saw that there was an ARIN response there. Thank you very much. I haven't heard anything about that in the last several months. Any idea what's happened since they asked since they asked a couple of people what they thought?
Einar, you want to respond to that?
Hi, everybody. Einar Bolin, policy analyst in the GAP team. There is an internet draft that suggests a different way of numbering with IPv6 addresses and with a large increase in hardware to make routing be much quicker with lower latency. I'll tell you about it, Jeff. So they brought it to study group 2. They presented it. We asked them what state this internet draft was. They had just submitted it. They said they intend to work on the code and bring it to the IETF in 2019, and we welcomed them to come back and report on it. That's basically it. I'd be happy to share the actual draft with anyone that's interested. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Any other questions for Anne Rochelle?
We heard.
Gary Campbell, Government of Jamaica. A good presentation. I enjoyed listening to all you had to say. Question I would like to ask, though, are there any formal channels via which governments can engage ARIN in terms of formulating policies related to all the issues you had up there, cybersecurity, IPv6 transition, and so on? Can you point me to just specific channels via which I could perhaps have that kind of communication with ARIN to get these done?
Well, we'll be very happy to work with you and identify what it is exactly you need and make sure that, if it is at our level, we're happy to respond. And if not, I'm pretty sure on issues of cybersecurity, we can find people in the community who can help you deal with that too. Yeah, thank you. Yep. Oh, yes.
Suzette Burley, Digital Jamaica Fellow for ARIN 42. The thing is, one of my portfolios working with government agencies on a board, and I sometimes find it challenging to get or influence change. I want to commend you first, though, with the work that you're doing, because I know it's quite difficult work to do that. But have you found them very receptive when you've made a suggestion to the table in terms of policy changes to drive change within the region?
So it really depends on the people, and it depends on what it is. To be honest, I think the whole thing is a question of trust. The more they see you, the more they're comfortable talking to you, because it is in their settings, and basically because you're there, once you interact and they do realize that you're there as a neutral body to tell them, okay, this is really in the interest of everybody, they listen. So I don't know, Kathy, do you want to add anything? But honestly, in general, I don't think we've had any issues. It's a question of relationship. It's how it works with governments. If they trust you, they listen. And yeah, thank you. Yes? Kathy?
In answer to your question, Anne Rochelle, I think one of the most important things to do and I've said this time and time again, is listen. And a lot of times you'll get questions that don't seem to make sense, but it's really important. I don't care. They don't know necessarily the right way to ask the question. So you have to listen and hear what they're saying and just stay in there and keep coming back. It's the best thing to do.
Other questions for Ann Rochelle? Thank you.
Thank you.